Thank you for inviting me. Fantastic to be here in Lancaster. It's an amazing breadth of people here. I think there's something very powerful could come out of today, and I'm hoping it will. And hopefully this will help to shape what that is. I think one of the most poignant images for me about how dysfunctional our food system has become came from a film called Food Inc. I don't know, has anyone seen Food Inc? It came out about 5 years ago. And it's an interview with a working class Hispanic family, mother and father, 2 daughters. They are all significantly overweight. The father is suffering from diabetes, and they have to spend quite a lot of money because of the public health system out there paying for his diabetes drugs. And the interview is primarily with the mother, and the mother is saying, what I'd like to do is be able to feed my children really good, wholesome food. So they take them around, the film crew, around a supermarket, and they show broccolis for $1.15, et cetera, et cetera. But she's talking about the dollar meal. Now, because of the way that the system works in America, the beef is cheap, the corn syrup's cheap, the bread's cheap, and you can buy the equivalent of a McDonald's meal for $1 a day, or $1 a meal. And she says she's got no choice. Well, her choice is literally either to spend less money and eat fast food every day in order to be able to afford the drugs that they need for their father to stay alive, or to spend that money not buying those drugs and provide good food for the children. And you can see from the image of those children that they're both likely to end up with type 2 diabetes in the next 5 or 10 years. The system has normalised bad food. That is fundamentally where I'm coming from. The whole system is problematic. Now, of course, at the time I went, yeah, but that's America, and America's like this, and, you know, it'll never happen here. It's already happening here. Now, I'm not going to go through these in detail, but we know that there's a huge problem around diet-related ill health. We know the impact it's having on the environment. We know the impact it's having around the fact that all of our skills are disappearing. People don't know how to cook, they don't know how to grow, they don't know how to identify food that they can use. Fresh, seasonal, how to make things from scratch. We also know that in the majority of cases, people who produce food are paid terrible money, as are all the people who work in the food chain. And I think the worst thing, of course, is this one at the bottom. Food poverty in the UK is accelerating incredibly quickly. And the truth of the matter is that the people who are in food poverty, the cheapest food available is high sugar, high salt, high fat. They are eating terrible diets, and they will die younger. It feeds back into that first one. We're looking at a generation who are potentially expecting lower life expectancies than their parents. Very negative. One last bit I would say around this that is also, for me, negative, but is hidden. The UK food sector is worth about £100 billion a year. Now, the statistics I've been looking at are saying that already the Public Health Service are spending £10 billion a year dealing with diet-related ill health. What costs the environment? What costs the misery it causes? It's those hidden costs as well as the real cost of dealing with the food system that I don't think we ever manage to weigh up. In a £100 billion food system, we might be spending a quarter of that or more in what we lose and what is being destroyed. Okay, negative stuff over now. We're supposed to be here to sort it all out. And I love this quote. This quote is from a Welsh rugby player. He had his back broken. He was going to be playing internationally for Wales. He couldn't. He's the first person ever to go to the peaks of the 7 summits and to the North and the South Pole in a year. And he used to quote this, and it came from his grandmother. But this is the kind of energy I think we need for today, which is we've got to think about a new vision around food. We've got to think, how could it be different? Because we have to realise that every single thing that we see out in the world is ultimately the product of the human mind and the product of human action. Now, it may be lots of other, interests out there pushing their own agendas, but between us, we ought to be able to make a difference. Now, I'm not here to tell you what Lancaster should be doing or what it should look like or what its food plan should be. But I think you need to be really, really ambitious. Don't think about the limits at the moment. Think about something crazy. So, for example, why shouldn't every single public and private sector meal in Lancaster be healthy and sustainable? Why shouldn't every single person in Lancaster be able to access affordable, healthy and sustainable food within 500 metres of where they live? Shouldn't matter where they live. Why shouldn't everyone in Lancaster be involved in cooking and growing and getting involved in community assets and taking control of their own food system? Why shouldn't good food be embedded into policy and strategy across the entire city? Now, of course, when you start thinking about these things, the immediate reaction is, why not? You know, there's lots of reasons why we can't do it. The system's too embedded. We haven't got the finances. You know, it's just never going to happen. People won't change. And what I'd like us to be doing today is turning why not into why not, the question. Because actually, all of the things that I have mentioned are already happening in one small way or another in some part of the UK. This is the Food for Life catering mart. It serves healthy, sustainable, ethical, local food at a bronze, silver and gold level. If you'd looked back 10 years ago and said that people like Sodexo would be competing with other people like Brakes and 3663 to serve healthy and sustainable meals, people would have laughed at you. There are 140 million meals a year being served at catering mart standard. Next year, I think it will be 280 million. It's making good business sense, but it's also making good food sense. This lovely guy here is Steve Garrett. He's not French, he just likes barrows. His Get Fresh pop-up shop is turning up in all of the food deserts across Cardiff. It's not the whole solution, but he's providing fresh, seasonal, cheap, organic food on a weekly basis to the people who most need it. Bristol, extraordinary place. It's anarchic. It really is. I've never been anywhere like it. But it is full of food. It's visible everywhere. There's a place called the Bear Market, which is, I'm not really sure how you describe it. It's kind of one of those underground areas where lots of tunnels meet in order to go into other places. And it was empty. And it was quite kind of rough. You walk through it thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get mugged. It's full of food now. People have taken over this public space, this public asset. They've got a basket on the floor with 5 pieces of fruit and vegetables in it. It's free. Take it away. People are taking control and getting inspired and enthusiastic about changing food culture. London. People need to build skills. This map is all the places that are doing capital growth. So capital growth was about creating 212 new growing spaces in the city in order to celebrate the Olympic Games. They're way over 2012. There are tens of thousands of people now learning how to grow as part of capital growth. And it's not just here. Big Dig is happening now in, I think, 9, 12 cities across the UK. We've got the Community Land Advisory Service of the Federation of City Farms and Community Gardens. There's lots of fantastic stuff happening, as I'm sure it is here, around giving people back the skills they need to be able to take food back into their own hands. Brighton, fantastic, really ahead of the game in terms of sustainable food cities, been doing it for 10 years. One of the most inspiring things they've done recently, planning advisory notes. Sounds very boring. They have made thinking about growing and how you incorporate it into new build developments, residential developments, across the board in Brighton. They've institutionalised or embedded in policy terms the idea that growing food and engaging with food is important in the way that people live and where they live. Food Plymouth, this is one that is very close to our heart. This is the first one where we got involved around Sustainable Food City. Fantastic cross-sector collaboration there. You've got the university, the public health team, the local authority, you've got civil society, you've got communities, and you've got business, all working together around this new brand, Food Plymouth, good food in Plymouth. I think it's also a very powerful brand, and we'll come back onto that in a minute. So, the point about sustainable food cities for me is about how do you normalise good food? And I think you can describe good food in many, many ways. Of course, I would describe it as organic, but there's lots of other types of good food as well. And for us as an organisation, for the people we work with, obviously what we're trying to do, and I call this the food scoop, is we're trying to get as many people down into this area of eating healthy and sustainable, local, ethical food. Now, as an organisation, we run a number of different initiatives. Food for Life, which you may have heard about, which is working in 4,500 schools across England, which is about a holistic approach, a whole school approach to changing food culture. Very good in schools, and is hoping to extend that into other institutions. Food for Life Catering Mart, talked about that earlier. That could be in all catering. But let's remember catering is only 50% of all the food consumed, so you've then got the 50% of retail. So for us, sustainable food cities is about how do you create something really broad, a big idea, a big brand under which all of the great work that's being done around food and all the stuff that can be done going forward can be captured, so that people can engage with it as a single idea rather than as lots and lots and lots of single initiatives. So this was the original slide about how, what's the point of sustainable food cities? It's about this. It's about getting a broad cross-sector collaboration across a city, a town, a borough, a district, working together to use food to deliver against all the different aspects of sustainability. It's not just about health, it's not just about environment, it's not just about locality. And actually I think there's a real danger wherever an initiative is about one of those things rather than the other. We've started to use local as a proxy for sustainable. Well, local doesn't need to be sustainable in any way at all. You could have, a mega dairy down the road providing you with milk. Well, that's not sustainable. So I think it's important that we have all of those aspects of sustainability working together. And that's, in a sense, the overarching coherence that we have around sustainable food cities, is try to work on all of those issues at the same time. So what is a sustainable food city?